If you haven't got this on your watch list, write it on your watch list. If it's written on your watch list, put it to the top of your watch list. Hey guys, I'm on my last day here in Annecy in France at the Annecy Festival. This is my last day here in the town, and I thought I'd take this chance to give a recap of what I've seen. I'm only going to talk about the films that I found really noteworthy that I wanted to talk about. I'm doing this partly for me because I want to be able to look back on this and remember it. And I'm also doing it because I think maybe some of you guys might like some animated movie recommendations. A lot of these movies haven't released to the public yet, so you might want to add them to a watch list that you have. You might want to write them down for later when they come out, but I guarantee you they're worth watching. I'm going to end this video with the movie that made the biggest impression on me that I think you must see. But I'm going to tell you the different categories I've got here. This week I watched some short films. I also got to sit in on 2 works in progress films. So they won't be finished for at least another year, and I want to talk about them with you. And of course, I watched a lot of feature films from all over the world. So I'll start with some of the short films. Now, a lot of the short films I watched, I don't really remember, which is a signal to me that they weren't my cup of tea this year. But there was one showcase where there was a high concentration of films that I absolutely loved. WTF. They are films that make you say, what the f did I just watch? This showcase has the most energy. Like when you go into the cinema, the people you meet, they're ready to see anything. It's like a rush seeing these films. It's really a lot of fun. So the first short film I'll recommend from this is called I Beg Your Pardon. This film has got a super weird art style with the big eyes, but hilariously funny film. This one got a huge reaction from the audience. I love this short film. I think it's really funny and absurd. There's another film really funny called Mamiko's Poop. This film has one of the best uses of Sakuga fight animation choreography, but the application of that fight choreography is so much more funny here. It's embracing Sakuga fight scene animation, but also mocking it in a way. A lot like what One Punch Man does. And it's just an independent film, probably made by one animator, and I love it. A taste of beer. We could not stop laughing at this film. I need to move on though. This wasn't in the WTF showcase, but there was a short film called The Girl Who Cried Pearls. They had a very uncanny way of moving in this film, but we quickly got over that, and when we did, we were really drawn in by the story. This one really stood out. If it's out online, I'll link it in the description. It's well worth your time. Now I'm going to talk about the work in progress films that I saw. I feel very privileged to have seen. See the directors in person, talk about their films part of the way through pre-production phase. So the first one is called The Mourning Children, as it's translated from Japanese. If I could summarize this in a theme, it would be historical accuracy. It was very clear that the director cared very deeply about the historical accuracy of the time period in which this is set, in feudal Japan, I suppose it's called, with a particular focus on the spread of diseases. At this point in time, the population was being decimated by these waterborne illnesses and diseases, things like chickenpox and smallpox. But it wasn't written about very much. So they were digging through history books, relying on the accounts of certain people who were keeping diaries at the time. In fact, the main character of this film is this girl who is writing a diary. The visuals really struck me for their accuracy. It turned out even just these underwater shots where you can see the larvae of these bugs and you're seeing the life cycle of these infectious diseases. They set up these water tanks and studied the larvae for themselves to take reference. Very close attention to detail was paid in this. He talked about the drive for historical accuracy was a real pain. Like, it was a real obstacle. It meant they were taking a painstaking amount of time and effort on their film's pre-production, but it's almost pushing them to new heights. And it really inspired me because through making the film, they are curating history. They are forging historical curations in a way that hasn't been done of that time period before. They were collecting documentation, compiling it as statistics in spreadsheets to find out certain death rates and which diseases were the worst. They were learning about a very particular time period and the clothing that they would wear in ways that hadn't been very well documented before, because it was a bit of a blind patch in history. They weren't just making a film, they were doing history. The other work in progress film I went to see is called Daisy's Life. It's an adaptation of a book, and it's directed by the very renowned Masaaki Yuasa. We think he's a trailblazing genius director who stands out among anime directors, particularly for his novel approaches to filmmaking. It was amazing hearing him talk about this film. He talked a lot about the idea of time and the compression of time. He showed a timeline of the lives of famous people from birth till death. Then he showed how at certain points multiple famous people were alive and had the possibility of meeting each other. He extended those timelines out and said, imagine if everyone was alive at the same time. He talked about compressing all the stages of one's life into a single book or a single box, and how that corresponds to the story of these two little girls who find each other through music. The designs look very Masaaki Yuasa, but we also heard from the character designer and how she was very determined to not sexualize these little girls, because she recognized it as, we don't like to talk about it, but it is a problem in Japan. That got a round of applause, and I will definitely be watching Daisy's Life when that comes out. Before I get into the feature films that I actually watched, I'll talk about one that I didn't watch that ended up winning the film festival. So it's probably really good, but I didn't get a chance to see it. It's called Arco. Looks very interesting, but I don't know anything about it. Well, as I'm editing this, they appear to have taken the trailer offline, but I was actually recording myself doing a drawing demo and it was playing behind me, so you can see a little bit here. Now I'm going to talk about the films I did see. I'll leave out the films that didn't make an impression on me or that I don't think are worth your time. First up is Ciao. It's a very conventional romance film about an arranged marriage where he ends up falling for the person. It's set in a sci-fi world, a utopia where there's mermaids and humans. So there's the sea world and the land world, and they're coexisting together. But the relationship is a tenuous one. And so the marriage of this mermaid to this man is very important to the cohesion of these two different biomes. Easy story to understand, but it's furnished with so much visual comedy. The drawings are very elastic, like the guy making fun of the fish and he goes, haha, you have a big head, but he's of course drawn to have a massive head himself. There's a lot of little visual gags that you might miss even on first viewing. The backgrounds have that kind of color pencil look, but very vivid. It's never boring. You could watch this on a date with someone, you could watch this with friends. They really push the animation. There's a lot of great Sakuga animation with the water scene near the end. It's a lovely film. I highly recommend it. Ciao. Watch it. Now I'm stepping up, okay? I'm always curious about what's going on in China, especially with the realm of 2D animation. There's a lot to be excited about with Chinese 2D animation. Another World did not disappoint. Another World is a rich, gorgeous epic. It has so much to offer. For me, I grew up in the West, so there is a natural advantage that world cinema has because it's especially interesting. The cultural differences is especially interesting and novel to me. Seeing how Buddhism and Taoism, is it? And ideas of reincarnation. If I could summarize the premise as I understand it, in this fantasy, souls are reincarnated, but before they're reincarnated, they pass through this kind of purgatory. Their souls are represented as lengths of rope. And when someone experiences anguish or torment in their lives, it manifests in the soul as a knot. These knots accumulate on this length of string as they pass through to their next life. So over many lifetimes that this soul journeys on, it can accumulate too many knots. When there's an overload of knots, the person can transform into a hideous but powerful monster that wreaks havoc on anything and everyone. This film follows the story not just of one person, but of one soul through, I don't know, 1,000 years or more. This soul is particularly unlucky. This soul just can't seem to catch a break. But the soul is befriended by this entity. This is a non-human entity whose job it is to shepherd souls into their next life. This entity is curious about humans and wants to learn to be human too. Sometimes this story was quite hard to keep up with because they do jump around in time. There is a bit of time travel, but it's full of interesting ideas and storylines, and at times it's just devastating. I mean, this soul goes through a lot of torment and anguish, and it's about whether this soul can endure the anguish without turning into a monster. It's not how I see the world. I wouldn't even say I agree with it, but it was fascinating. While it did manage to mostly be in 2D, I feel like I have to mention about at times it just switched into 3D, like toon shaded 3D, and it was very noticeable. I don't know, maybe it was just a budget thing or a staffing shortage, but I think that could have been improved. The 2D that they had was beautiful, it was wonderful, and the 3D really had no place there. I don't like this just switching in and out of 3D for no reason. If it was a budget shortage or a staffing shortage, they should have condensed the film down into less runtime instead of having to outsource some of it to a 3D studio or something. I'm not sure if that's what they did. But that being said, I mean, the designs were amazing. The music is wonderful. We read the subtitles and listened to the original voices. The voices are great. The emotions were transferred, and of course the artwork was beautiful, especially in the opening scene when you're introduced to this purgatory. I've found that many Chinese studios prize ornate detail. Also, Chinese storytelling never seems to fear grandeur. They always have a sense of grandeur to them that I welcome, you know. They're building these huge worlds with rule systems, and I love it. The storytelling is a lot to handle, I think, for a writer and for a storyteller. I feel like the storytelling is a bit clumsy at times. The characters cry a lot. But it's really worth watching. Now, to contrast that, I watched a Japanese film called The Last Blossom. At first, I thought it was going to be called Turn It Around, because that phrase, turn it around, is repeated in this film. The idea, I suppose, is that it's not too late to have a big comeback in life, even if you're really old. If you've made a lot of mistakes in your past, it's a very simple idea. This film is very well paced. It's a slow unfolding film that is from the point of view of a man who's very old, who's basically dying in prison, and is making his confessions to this flower about why he's in jail and what he regrets. The story itself is easy to understand. The film is not trying to make any grand statements on society or anything. It's just a personal story about a life of crime and regrets, and it's also about family and about who you love and who you choose to love. So I like this film. If you're running out of films to watch, I think this is a good one. I really felt the emotions on this. Let this film unfold, and by the end it really did culminate in a small, simple message that felt beautiful. So all of those films are good and you should watch them. But there's a film that I watched this week that I am lost for words over. It's a French film called Little Amélie, or The Character of Rain.
Il n'y avait rien à part un tube. Des jours, des semaines, des siècles passèrent. Et le miracle eut lieu. C'est ainsi que je suis née par la grâce du chocolat blanc.
I went into the movie screening as a hardened gangster. I left as a soft, squishy, vulnerable, sensitive man. I think this film has the ability to change lives, or at least change one's perspective on life. It certainly did for me. It really got me to reflect on not only things in my past, but also my memory of them, how I choose to think about them. The film follows this little girl from when she's born, or even before she's born, to her 3rd birthday. It's 3 years of a little baby girl's life. Within that is so much beauty. You see everything from her point of view, but also you follow her into her imagination, and even further than her imagination, her emotions manifest in the world around her. When she's angry, there is an earthquake. When she is happy, the flower buds open in springtime. It is incredibly sincere. It works perfectly. Every composition has the most awe-inspiring colors. Every composition is like a love letter to nature, to childhood, to memory, to the ones that care about us. I think by the style, it looks like it's the same team that did The Long Way North, Calamity Jane. This film, they cracked it. They elevated the way the characters move and the way that emotions are expressed, the magic realism, the subjective storytelling. If ever I needed a reminder of why I make animations, this is it. I don't need any more reminders. If you don't know yet, this channel is all about animation. I'm a 2D animator. I teach my process of animating and I try to help animators. So if that sounds interesting to you, please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, like the video if you feel like helping me out, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.